He caught his wife cheating on Christmas Eve. But instead of ending the relationship, he let the wedding continue. Because what he had planned for that day would haunt her forever. He didn't confront her. Instead, he decided to give her the perfect wedding and the perfect revenge. Hey, beautiful souls! I'm so glad you found this story today. Where are you watching from? Drop your location in the comments below so I can see how far this story travels. How's your day going so far? I hope it's treating you well. And listen, if you haven't subscribed yet, why not? Don't you want more stories that touch the heart and soul? My mom said I'd never reach 1,000 subscribers. Help me prove her wrong by hitting that subscribe button right now. I promise you won't regret it. If the person you loved shattered your heart on Christmas Eve, would you still walk down the aisle? Let me take you deeper into Jack's story, and you'll understand why sometimes silence is more powerful than confrontation. Long before that fateful Christmas Eve, Jack Wick was known for his quiet strength. Unlike most men his age who wore their emotions like neon signs, Jack processed life internally, his dark eyes thoughtful and observant. Those who knew him well understood that his silence wasn't weakness, it was his superpower. When Jack spoke, people listened, because he never wasted words. Loyalty isn't just a choice, he once told his best friend. It's the foundation everything else is built on. For Jack, this wasn't just philosophy, it was the core of his being, forged in the crucible of a fractured childhood. Growing up with parents who separated when he was 7, Jack had witnessed firsthand how quickly love could dissolve into bitterness. He'd promised himself that when he found love, he would protect it at all costs. His apartment reflected his character, minimalist but warm, each item carefully chosen and meaningful. Photos of his travels lined one wall, books filled another. The coffee table held just 3 items, a handcrafted wooden box from his grandfather, a small cactus that had survived his neglect for years, and a framed photo of Maya laughing at the beach, her hair wild in the wind. Maya Stone entered Jack's life like a hurricane, vibrant, unpredictable, and impossible to ignore. Where Jack was deliberate, Maya was spontaneous. Where he was reserved, she was expressive. Her laughter could fill a room, her stories captivating everyone in earshot. She's like watching a fireworks display, his mother had commented after meeting her. Beautiful, but be careful not to stand too close. Maya worked in public relations, her natural charisma making her a favorite with clients. She could charm anyone, from suspicious journalists to reluctant celebrities. People gravitated to her magnetic energy. Yet beneath that radiance, Jack sometimes caught glimpses of something else, a shadow that crossed her face when she thought no one was looking. A nervousness when certain subjects arose. The way she deflected questions about her past relationships with practiced ease. Everyone has baggage, Maya had told him on their 3rd date. Some people just hide it better than others. At the time, Jack had admired her honesty. Now, he wondered what other truth she had hidden behind that disarming smile. Eric Balboa had been Jack's best friend since college, a straight shooter with zero filter and unwavering loyalty. Unlike Jack, Eric processed everything externally, his opinions flowing freely whether requested or not. I don't trust her, Eric had said 6 months into Jack and Maya's relationship. They were at their regular bar, watching a basketball game neither cared about. You don't trust anyone, Jack had replied, dismissing the comment. Eric had shaken his head slowly. Not true. I trust you. I trust Mrs. Adesina. I even trust my ex who stole my record collection. But Maya, something's off. Jack had defended her then, attributing Eric's suspicions to overprotectiveness. Now, he wondered if his friend had seen what he had been too in love to notice. Mrs. Adesina wasn't related to Jack by blood, but in every way that mattered, she was family. His former high school literature teacher had recognized something in the quiet teenager with thoughtful eyes. After graduation, she'd remained a constant in his life, the voice of wisdom when he felt lost, the gentle guidance when he veered off course. Love isn't just a feeling, my dear boy, she told him when he announced his engagement. It's a choice you make every single day. And so is honesty. Then there was Tolu, Maya's younger sister by 3 years, but sometimes the more mature of the two. Where Maya was all flash and sparkle, Tolu was substance and depth. The sisters were close, but Tolu watched her sister with the knowing eyes of someone who had witnessed every iteration of Maya's personality. "My sister loves deeply," Tolu had told Jack during a rare moment alone. "But sometimes, she loves herself more." At the time, Jack had interpreted this as a light-hearted joke about Maya's occasional vanity. Later, he would replay this conversation in his mind with painful clarity. The engagement had come after 2 years together, a rooftop proposal with the city skyline glittering behind them. Maya had cried, her mascara creating delicate black rivers down her cheeks. "Yes, 1,000 times yes," she'd whispered against his lips. That night, tangled in hotel sheets, Maya had looked at him with an intensity that nearly burned. "Promise me you'll never leave," she'd said, voice uncharacteristically small. "No matter what." "I promise," he'd replied without hesitation, interpreting her vulnerability as proof of her love. They'd set the wedding date for New Year's Eve, a symbolic fresh start, Maya had said. The perfect beginning to their forever. What Jack didn't know then was that Maya carried wounds deeper than she ever revealed. Abandonment issues from a father who left when she was 12, trust issues from a college boyfriend who had humiliated her publicly, and a desperate need for validation that no single person could ever fully satisfy. These wounds didn't excuse what would happen on Christmas Eve, but perhaps they explained it. By the way, if you're watching this and haven't subscribed yet, don't break my heart like that. Tap that button. Let's keep growing together. Your support means everything to this channel. As the wedding plans accelerated, a subtle shift occurred in their relationship, so gradual that Jack almost missed it. Maya's texts became less frequent, her excuses more common. Work emergencies kept her late. Friend crises demanded her attention. The intimacy that had once been effortless now required scheduling and planning. "It's just wedding stress," she'd assured him, kissing away his concerns. "Everything will be perfect once we're married." Jack believed her because he wanted to, needed to, because the alternative meant facing a truth his loyalty-bound heart couldn't accept, that perhaps the foundation they'd built their relationship on wasn't as solid as he believed. And so the stage was set for that Christmas Eve night when Jack would learn that sometimes the greatest act of love isn't holding on, it's knowing exactly when and how to let go. Christmas Eve had always been Jack's favorite holiday, not for the presents or decorations, but for the quiet moment when the world seemed to collectively pause, when peace felt not just possible, but inevitable. This Christmas Eve was supposed to be special. With the wedding just a week away, he'd planned to surprise Maya with the honeymoon tickets and the vintage ornament he'd found that matched her grandmother's collection. The evening had started perfectly. Downtown was transformed into a winter wonderland, storefronts glowing with warm light, the air crisp and expectant. Jack had left work early, stopping to pick up Maya's favorite peppermint hot chocolate and the gingerbread cookies she loved from that little bakery on 7th Street. "Going all out for the future missus, huh?" the bakery owner had teased, carefully boxing the cookies. "It's our last Christmas Eve before we're married," Jack had replied, his voice warm with anticipation. "I want to make it memorable." Snow had just begun falling as he'd made his way to Maya's apartment, fat, lazy flakes drifting from a charcoal sky. Jack had texted her earlier, telling her he needed to work late and would see her at tomorrow's Christmas lunch with his family. The lie had felt strange on his fingers as he'd typed it, but he'd wanted the surprise to be complete. Now, standing in the silent snowfall outside her window, Jack felt his world collapse in slow motion. Inside, bathed in the glow of the Christmas tree lights she'd insisted on keeping on at all times, Maya was locked in an embrace with a man Jack recognized immediately. James Parker. His colleague. His friend. The man who had stood beside him at countless company events, who had listened to Jack talk about Maya with the reverent tones of a man deeply in love. The hot chocolate in Jack's hand grew cold as he watched them together, unable to tear his eyes away. It wasn't just the physical betrayal that gutted him, it was the intimacy. The way Maya's hand cradled James's face. The familiar laugh she gave at something he whispered. The comfortable way they moved together, suggesting this was far from the first time. 1,000 thoughts crashed through Jack's mind at once. Confrontation scenarios played out in vivid detail. He could storm in, demand explanations, create the kind of scene that would become family legend. He could expose them both, watch their faces crumble with shame. He could end it all right here, on Christmas Eve, with the snow falling around them like some twisted holiday movie. Instead, Jack stepped back from the window. His phone buzzed in his pocket, a text from Maya. "Can't wait to see you tomorrow. Love you so much. XO." The casual lie, sent while she was in another man's arms, crystallized something in Jack's chest. This wasn't a momentary lapse. This wasn't a mistake. This was deliberate deception from the woman who was supposed to be his partner for life. Jack turned and walked away, each step creating a fresh impression in the virgin snow. The velvet box and honeymoon tickets remained in his pocket, unforgiven promises of a future now impossible to imagine. At home, Jack sat in darkness, the only light coming from the blinking Christmas lights of his neighbor's balcony casting alternating red and green shadows across his living room. He didn't call Eric. He didn't break down. Instead, he thought with a clarity that surprised even him. This wasn't the beginning of the betrayal, it was merely his discovery of it. How long had it been going on? Weeks. Months. The signs he'd ignored came flooding back. Her new possessiveness of her phone, the unexplained absences, the sudden work emergencies that required her attention at odd hours. But something else occurred to Jack as the night deepened around him, something that would change everything. If Maya and James could lie so effectively for so long, what else might they be hiding? The betrayal felt too convenient, too brazen. There was more to this story than simple infidelity. By morning, Jack had made his decision. He would not confront Maya. He would not cancel the wedding. Instead, he would proceed as if nothing had happened. He would play the role of adoring fiancé. He would continue the wedding preparations with enthusiasm and care. And all the while, he would watch. He would listen. He would gather every thread of deception until he understood the complete tapestry of lies they had woven. Because Jack Wick had realized something fundamental. The greatest power he now possessed was that they didn't know that he knew. When Maya called Christmas morning, her voice bright with artificial cheer, Jack answered with matching enthusiasm. "Merry Christmas, beautiful. I can't wait to see you." "Did you sleep well?" she asked, and he detected the faintest note of guilt beneath her question. "Like a baby," he lied, his eyes gritty from a sleepless night. "Dreaming of our wedding." The family Christmas lunch passed in a blur of forced smiles and careful observations. Jack watched Maya check her phone repeatedly, saw her step outside for a work call that left her cheeks flushed. He noted how she avoided to lose direct gaze, how she overcompensated with affection toward him when others were watching. "You okay?" Eric asked quietly, cornering him in the kitchen. "You seem different." "Never better," Jack replied, his smile not quite reaching his eyes. "Just wedding jitters." Eric studied him closely but didn't press. "You know I'm here if you need to talk, right? About anything." Jack simply nodded, patting his friend's shoulder before rejoining the festivities. Later that night, as he dropped Maya at her apartment, she kissed him with a desperate intensity that almost made him falter in his resolve. "I love you," she whispered against his lips. "You know that, right?" "I know," he said, the words tasting like ash. "I love you too." As he drove away, Jack glanced in his rearview mirror and saw Maya already on her phone, typing rapidly. The sight hardened his resolve. The mystery wasn't just who or why, but what exactly were they planning? Why maintain the engagement if her heart was elsewhere? 7 days until the wedding. 7 days to uncover the full extent of their betrayal. 7 days to plan how this would end, not with a whimper of heartbroken defeat, but with the kind of truth that would set him free. Before we continue, if you're feeling this story already and haven't subscribed yet, don't be shy, join our family. You can save a soul right now simply by hitting that subscribe button. Every subscription feeds my passion to bring you more stories that touch the heart. Do it for the storytelling gods. As Jack pulled into his driveway, his phone chimed with a text from James. "Hey man, we still on for that pre-wedding golf game? Can't wait to stand beside you on your big day." Jack stared at the message, the casual cruelty of it stealing his breath. James wasn't just having an affair with Maya, he was planning to stand as a groomsman at their wedding. The betrayal had layers Jack was only beginning to comprehend. "Absolutely," Jack typed back, his fingers steady despite the storm raging inside him. "Wouldn't have it any other way." The stage was set. The actors were in place. But the script, that was about to change dramatically. And no one, not even Jack himself, could predict the final act. The week between Christmas and New Year's Eve unfolded like a slow-motion psychological thriller. On the surface, Jack maintained the facade of an excited groom, attending final fittings, confirming arrangements with vendors, smiling through endless well wishes from friends and family. But beneath this carefully constructed persona, he had become something else entirely, a detective piecing together the fragments of a relationship built on lies. Each interaction with Maya became an excavation site. Jack studied her expressions, catalogued her inconsistencies, and noted the subtle tells that he'd previously attributed to wedding stress. The slight tremor in her hands when her phone buzzed. The way her eyes darted away when discussing certain wedding details. The new habit of turning her phone face down whenever he entered the room. "I was thinking," Jack said casually over breakfast 3 days after Christmas, "maybe we should invite James to the rehearsal dinner too. He's been such a good friend through all this." Maya's coffee cup paused halfway to her lips, a momentary freeze so brief anyone else might have missed it. "Oh, I thought the rehearsal was just family and the wedding party." Jack shrugged, buttering his toast with deliberate care. "I consider him practically family at this point." "Whatever you want, babe," Maya replied, her smile not quite reaching her eyes. "It's your day too." "Our day." The words hung in the air between them, heavy with irony. Jack merely nodded, filing away her reaction for later analysis. That afternoon, while Maya was at a final dress fitting with her sister, Jack did something he'd never imagined himself doing. He went through her laptop. The password was easy. She'd never bothered to change it from the anniversary of their first date. What he found sent ice through his veins. Emails between Maya and James dating back 9 months. 9 months of secret meetings, of elaborate lies, of planning rendezvous while maintaining their respective relationships. But something didn't add up. The tone of the messages suggested more than just physical attraction. There was calculation there, strategy, mentions of the plan, and after it's done. One email from James particularly stood out. "Once the marriage is official and the accounts are joined, we can move to phase 2. He trusts you completely. That's our advantage." Jack sat back, the pieces suddenly clicking into terrible place. This wasn't just an affair. This was something more calculating, more deliberate. The realization should have crushed him, but instead, it hardened his resolve. Knowledge was power, and now he understood what he was truly fighting against. Carefully, Jack returned everything exactly as he'd found it, leaving no trace of his discovery. That evening, when Maya returned bubbling with excitement about her dress, Jack played his part perfectly, attentive, loving, completely unaware. But now he watched her with new eyes, seeing not just a cheating fiancé but a con artist playing a long game. "I ran into James today," Jack mentioned as they prepared dinner. "He seemed distracted." Maya's knife slipped, nearly cutting her finger as she chopped vegetables. "Oh, maybe work stress." "Maybe," Jack agreed, noting the flush creeping up her neck. "He mentioned something about an investment opportunity he's excited about. Said it would be life-changing." "That's nice," Maya replied, her voice carefully neutral. "Pass the salt." The conversation shifted, but Jack had confirmed his suspicions. Maya and James weren't just betraying him emotionally, they were planning something financial. With Jack's recent promotion and the inheritance from his grandfather that had just come through, he made an attractive target. The wedding wasn't just a ceremony, it was the final step in their scheme. Settle in, get comfortable, and if you haven't subscribed yet, go ahead and do that. You're safe here. Your support allows me to keep bringing these real, raw stories to light. As the days passed, Jack employed a strategy of controlled chaos, introducing small changes to wedding plans, suggesting last-minute adjustments, watching how Maya and James reacted to each deviation. He noticed their private text exchanges increasing, the hushed phone calls Maya took on the balcony, the strain beginning to show around her eyes. "Everything okay?" he asked innocently after catching her in an intense whispered phone conversation. "You seem stressed." "Everything's fine," Maya insisted, her smile too bright, too forced. "Just want everything to be perfect." Jack squeezed her hand reassuringly. "It will be. I promise you that." Meanwhile, Jack was making moves of his own. A discreet meeting with his lawyer resulted in amended financial arrangements. A conversation with the bank created new security protocols. A private investigator, recommended by Eric, began compiling a dossier on James Parker's history, revealing a pattern of similar relationships with successful, financially secure women. "You're sure about this?" Eric asked during a rare moment when Jack confided portions of what he discovered. They were at the gym, the pounding of treadmills providing cover for their conversation. "This is some serious stuff, man." Jack increased the incline on his machine, his breathing steady despite the exertion. "I've never been more certain of anything." Eric studied his friend's face. "What are you planning to do?" "Let it play out," Jack replied, his eyes fixed on the distance. "Right to the altar." "That's ice cold," Eric said, a new respect in his voice. "I didn't think you had it in you." Jack's smile didn't reach his eyes. Neither did they. As the wedding approached, Jack noticed Maya's behavior becoming increasingly erratic. She oscillated between clinging affection and inexplicable irritability. During the rehearsal dinner, she excused herself 4 times to take calls. Jack observed James following her out once, their hushed argument visible through the restaurant window though the words were lost. When Maya returned, her smile was fixed but her eyes were troubled. "Everything okay?" Jack asked, genuine concern in his voice despite everything. "Just wedding jitters," she replied, squeezing his hand. "Can't believe we're almost there." "Having second thoughts?" he asked lightly, though the question carried hidden weight. Maya's eyes widened. "God, no. I can't wait to be Mrs. Wick. It's all I've ever wanted." The lie was so smooth, so practiced, that for a moment Jack almost believed her. Almost. Later that night, as Maya slept beside him in his apartment, Jack slipped out to the balcony with his phone. The text from the private investigator had confirmed his final suspicion. James Parker wasn't even James Parker. His real name was Alexander Collins, and he had 3 outstanding warrants in 2 different states for fraud and confidence schemes. Jack looked through the bedroom window at Maya's sleeping form, remembering the woman he thought he knew, the woman he had planned to spend his life with. That woman had never existed. The realization should have devastated him, but instead, Jack felt an odd sense of clarity. The pain was still there, a constant companion, but it no longer controlled him. The night before the wedding, Jack sat alone in his apartment after the bachelor party, surrounded by the debris of male celebration. Eric had wanted to stay, concerned about his friend's too calm demeanor, but Jack had insisted he needed time alone. "You sure you're okay?" Eric had asked at the door, his words slightly slurred from whiskey. "It's not too late to call this whole thing off, you know." Jack had simply smiled. "I'm exactly where I need to be. See you at the altar, brother." After Eric left, Jack opened his laptop and made one final set of arrangements. Then he took out the vows he had written months ago, sincere, loving promises to a woman who had never deserved them, and replaced them with a single sheet of paper. His phone buzzed with a text from Maya. "Can't sleep. Too excited for tomorrow. I love you so much." Jack stared at the message for a long moment before replying, "Tomorrow changes everything. Get some rest. Big day ahead." He set his phone down and looked out at the city lights, feeling strangely peaceful. The man who had discovered his fiancée's betrayal on Christmas Eve was gone. In his place stood someone stronger, someone wiser, Someone who understood that sometimes the greatest revenge isn't about destruction, it's about truth. The wedding was set for 4 p.m. on New Year's Eve. In less than 24 hours, Maya Stone would walk down the aisle expecting to complete her con. Instead, she would face the consequences of underestimating the man she had tried to destroy. The morning of the wedding arrived with picture-perfect weather, crisp, clear skies and winter sunlight that turned the fresh snowfall into a sea of diamonds. Jack stood at his apartment window, coffee in hand, watching the city wake up on this New Year's Eve. In 12 hours, the world would celebrate a fresh beginning. And so would he, though not in the way anyone expected. His phone rang, Mrs. Adesina calling to check on him. "My boy," her warm voice filled his ear. "How are you feeling today?" "I'm at peace," Jack replied, surprising himself with the truth of it. "Everything is clear now." A pause on the other end. That's an unusual way for a groom to describe his wedding day. Jack smiled faintly. "It's been an unusual engagement." "Jack," Mrs. Adesina said, her voice dropping to that tone she used when imparting wisdom. "I've known you since you were a boy hiding novels inside your math textbook. Whatever happens today, remember who you are at your core. That's something no one can take from you." "I won't forget," he promised, warmed by her intuition. She didn't know the details, but she sensed the storm. After they hung up, Jack opened his safe and removed a manila folder, the final report from the private investigator. He'd received it digitally last night, but seeing the evidence printed in black and white made it undeniably real. The file contained everything: Alexander Collins' history, his previous scams, his methodical approach to finding victims. But what Jack hadn't been prepared for was the revelation of how deep this betrayal truly went. The photograph showed Alexander, James, meeting with someone else 2 days ago, Tyler Chambers, Jack's cousin and the closest thing he had to a brother. Jack stared at the images, his world tilting on its axis. Tyler had been raised alongside Jack after his parents died in a car accident when he was 12. Jack's family had taken him in, treated him as their own. When Tyler struggled with addiction in his early 20s, it was Jack who had paid for rehab, who had given him a job at his company, who had believed in him when everyone else had written him off. And now here was Tyler, clearly conspiring with the man who was sleeping with Jack's fiancée. The betrayal cut deeper than Jack could have imagined. This wasn't just about Maya and James. This was about family turning against family. The people he had protected, supported, and loved, all working together to betray him. Jack spread the photos across his kitchen counter, tracing connections. According to the investigator's notes, Tyler had known Alexander for years. They had met during Tyler's darkest period, running scams together before Tyler supposedly got clean. It appeared that Tyler had introduced Alexander to Maya at a company party last year, setting the entire scheme in motion. Tyler knew about Jack's inheritance. He knew about Jack's savings, his investments, his trusting nature. He had provided the perfect target to his partner in crime, and then helped orchestrate the ultimate betrayal. A text message chimed on Jack's phone. "Can't wait to see you at the altar, cousin. Proud of you." Tyler's name flashed on the screen, the casual cruelty of it nearly taking Jack's breath away. For the first time since Christmas Eve, Jack felt his careful composure crack. A single tear slid down his cheek, followed by another. Not tears of weakness, tears of rage, of grief for the family bond that had never truly existed. Jack allowed himself exactly 5 minutes to feel this pain. Then he wiped his face, straightened his shoulders, and returned to the folder. The final piece was a transcript of a recorded conversation between Tyler, Alexander, and Maya from 3 days ago. "Alexander, once they're married, we've got 60 days to transfer the assets before he notices anything. The honeymoon gives us the perfect cover. Maya, I still think we should wait longer. He trusts me completely. We could get more if we play the long game." Tyler, no way. Jack's not stupid. He's just blinded by love right now. The longer we wait, the riskier it gets. We stick to the original plan. Maya, fine. But I want my full cut, 30% as agreed. This hasn't been easy, you know. He's actually a good man. Alexander, laughing. Good men make the best targets, babe. That's why Tyler here picked him for us. Tyler, he's always been like that, seeing the best in people. Even when I was stealing from him to buy drugs, he kept giving me chances. Called it believing in family. Snorts. Some family he's got. Jack set the transcript down, his hands perfectly steady. The confusion and pain that had clouded his mind since Christmas Eve crystallized into absolute clarity. This was no longer about a broken heart or a cancelled wedding. This was about justice, not just for himself, but for every good man these three had targeted in the past or might target in the future. His phone buzzed again with a text from Eric. On my way to pick you up. You sure about going through with today? More certain than ever, Jack replied. But I need a favor first. Before we dive deeper, if you're new here, hi love. I'm glad you made it. Go ahead and hit that subscribe button so you don't miss stories that touch the heart. Your support means the world, and I promise to keep bringing you content that moves you. An hour later, Eric sat stunned in Jack's living room, the evidence spread before him. Jesus Christ, Eric whispered, looking up at his friend. Your own cousin. The man you helped get clean. Jack nodded, adjusting his cufflinks with deliberate precision. Family by blood, stranger by choice. What are you going to do? Eric asked, his voice tight with anger on his friend's behalf. Jack's smile was cold but controlled. Exactly what they don't expect. I'm going to show up, stand at that altar, and speak my truth. The police will be notified, Jack finished. But first, I need to look them in the eyes when they realize their game is over. He paused, straightening his tie. I need to see Maya's face when she understands that I've known all along. Eric stood, placing a hand on Jack's shoulder. I've got your back. Whatever happens today. Jack clasped his friend's hand, gratitude washing through him. I know. You're the real family I never had to doubt. As they prepared to leave for the church, Jack took one final look around his apartment, at the life he'd built, the future he'd planned, the dreams that had been shattered. But from those fragments, he was constructing something new, not the life he'd expected, but perhaps the one he needed. Ready? Eric asked at the door. Jack nodded, slipping the folder into his suit jacket. Ready to end this and begin again. The revelation of Tyler's involvement had transformed Jack's pain into purpose. What had begun as a personal betrayal had evolved into something far more sinister, a conspiracy by the people he should have been able to trust most. The stakes weren't just his broken heart anymore. They were about confronting the fundamental betrayal of family and laying bare the truth, no matter how painful. As the sleek black car pulled away from his apartment building, Jack felt strangely powerful. For weeks, Maya, Alexander, and Tyler had believed they were the puppeteers, pulling strings from the shadows. They had no idea that Jack had seen the strings, traced them to their source, and was about to cut them all at once. The wedding was scheduled for 4 p.m. At 3:58 p.m., their world would change forever. The church stood before him, its stone facade majestic against the winter sky. Inside, 200 guests waited, colleagues, friends, family members, all unwitting extras in a performance built on lies. Jack remained in the car, staring at the ornate doors while Eric gave him space, understanding that some battles must be faced alone, even with allies at your side. Time seemed to slow as memories washed over Jack, not just of Maya, but of Tyler. Summers at the lake house, teaching Tyler to fish. Staying up all night when Tyler called, sweating and desperate during early recovery. Standing beside him at their grandmother's funeral, hands clasped in shared grief. Had it all been a calculation? A long con designed to position Tyler close enough to strike when the moment was right? I can't do this, Jack whispered, the words escaping before he could catch them. We can leave right now, Eric responded immediately. Just say the word. But Jack wasn't talking about the wedding. He was talking about what came next, the public exposure, the shocked faces, the whispers that would follow him for years. He was talking about destroying the woman he had loved and the man he had called brother. What if I just walked away? Jack said, more to himself than to Eric. Cancelled everything quietly. Disappeared somewhere to start over. You could, Eric acknowledged. No one would blame you. Jack closed his eyes, imagining that path. The dignified exit, the private heartbreak, the clean break that would spare everyone the public humiliation. It would be easier, cleaner, perhaps even more merciful. Then he remembered Tyler's words from the transcript. Asterisk, he's always been like that, seeing the best in people. Even when I was stealing from him to buy drugs, he kept giving me chances. Asterisk. The mockery in those words rekindled something in Jack's chest. His kindness wasn't weakness, it was strength. And these people had weaponized it against him. No, Jack said finally, his voice steadying. That's exactly what they expect me to do. Be the good guy. Walk away quietly while they move on to their next target. Inside the church, Jack moved through pre-wedding rituals like a man underwater, present physically but detached emotionally. The pastor offered blessings. The best man, not Tyler, who was merely a groomsman, made jokes about married life. Distant relatives patted his shoulder with well-meaning platitudes about the journey ahead. None of them knew they were attending not a wedding, but a reckoning. In the small antechamber where he waited for the ceremony to begin, Tyler found him. Big day, cousin, Tyler said, straightening Jack's boutonniere with practiced ease. You look tense. Pre-wedding jitters. Jack studied his cousin's face, the familiar features, the easy smile that had charmed their family for decades. How had he never seen the calculation behind those eyes? Just thinking about family, Jack replied carefully. About loyalty. Something flickered across Tyler's face, a momentary uncertainty quickly masked. Hey, I know I haven't always been the best. But I'm clean now, turning things around. And I'm grateful for everything you've done. The sincerity in his voice was perfect. If Jack hadn't seen the evidence himself, he might have believed it. I've always considered you a brother, Jack said, each word deliberate. Family above all else, that's what our grandfather taught us. Tyler's smile faltered slightly. Yeah, family first. When Tyler left to check on the guests, Jack felt a crushing weight descend. For a brief moment, doubt crept in. What if he was wrong? What if the evidence was somehow mistaken? What if he was about to destroy relationships based on a terrible misunderstanding? The doubt was so overwhelming that Jack found himself in the small bathroom attached to the antechamber, gripping the sink as panic threatened to overtake him. His breathing came in short gasps, his vision narrowing to pinpoints. Everything he believed about love, about family, about his own judgment, all of it was crumbling. And hey, while you're here, if you haven't subscribed yet, I'd love to have you as part of the family. Go on, I'll wait. Your subscription helps this channel grow, and I promise to keep bringing stories that matter. The knock on the door startled him back to the present. Jack. It was Maya's sister, Tolu. Can I talk to you for a minute? Jack splashed water on his face, composed himself, and opened the door. Tolu stood there in her bridesmaid dress, her expression troubled. You should be with Maya, he said automatically. I should be where I'm needed, Tolu replied. She studied him with those perceptive eyes so unlike her sister's. Something's wrong. It wasn't a question. Jack considered denying it, maintaining the facade for just a little longer. Instead, he heard himself ask, Did you know? The directness of the question caught Tolu off guard. Know what? About Maya and James. About their plan. Tolu's sharp intake of breath told Jack everything. Oh God, she whispered. You found out. Her eyes filled with tears. I tried to warn you, in my way. I should have been more direct, but she's my sister and I. How long have you known? Jack asked, his voice hollow. I suspected something was happening with James months ago. But the rest, Tolu shook her head. I only overheard them talking last week. I confronted her, but she swore it was just cold feet, that she really loves you, that she was going to call it off with him. Jack laughed, a bitter sound with no humor in it. And you believed her? I wanted to, Tolu admitted. She's my sister. But no, not really. She reached for his hand. Jack, I'm so sorry. What are you going to do? It was the same question Eric had asked, but something about hearing it from Tolu, the one person from Maya's side who seemed genuinely concerned for him, broke something open in Jack's chest. I don't know, he admitted, the words catching in his throat. Part of me wants to walk out there and expose everything. Another part wants to just disappear and never look back. And there's a part, his voice broke, a part that still loves her, still wants to believe there's an explanation. Tolu's eyes filled with compassion. That's because you're a good man, Jack. Better than any of us deserve. She squeezed his hand. Whatever you decide to do, I'll support you, even against my own sister. When Tolu left, Jack sank onto a small bench, the weight of decision crushing him. The wedding was scheduled to begin in 30 minutes. Guests were being seated. Maya was in her dressing room, preparing to walk down the aisle to a man she had systematically betrayed. Jack took out his phone and stared at the home screen, a photo of him and Maya laughing at the beach. He could still remember the exact moment, the salt spray in the air, the warmth of the sun, the feeling that he had finally found his place in the world. All of it built on sand. He scrolled through his contacts, thumb hovering over his lawyer's name. One call could set everything in motion legally. No confrontation needed. No public scene. Then he scrolled to Mrs. Adesina's number, remembering her words from earlier. Asterisk, remember who you are at your core. Asterisk. Who was he? The man who walked away to protect others from embarrassment? The man who confronted betrayal with righteous anger? The man who forgave the unforgivable? The organ music began, signaling that guests should be in their seats. In 15 minutes, the processional would start. In 20, Maya would appear at the end of the aisle, a vision in white, ready to complete her deception. Jack stood at the crossroads of his life, paralyzed by the weight of choice. A text message illuminated his phone, from Maya. I can't wait to be your wife. To build our future together. I love you more than you'll ever know. The sheer audacity of it, sent while she prepared to defraud him, while her lover waited in the wedding party, while her co-conspirator cousin pretended to celebrate their union, it crystallized something in Jack's mind. This wasn't just about him anymore. It was about truth. About consequences. About making sure that what happened to him wouldn't happen to someone else. Jack straightened his tie, slipped his phone into his pocket, and opened the door. The organist had begun playing the prelude. Guests were seated, programs in hand, smiles of anticipation on their faces. His mother caught his eye from the front row, her proud smile sending a pang through his heart. What would she think when she learned the truth? How would she look at Tyler afterward? For a moment, Jack nearly faltered. Then he thought of the transcript, of the calculated betrayal, of the mockery they had made of his trust. The pastor appeared beside him. Ready, son? Jack nodded, finding his voice at last. Yes, he said, with a certainty that surprised even him. I'm ready to end this. He took his position at the altar, Eric beside him as best man, Tyler among the groomsmen, Alexander, James, smiling blandly as if this were any normal wedding. Jack stood tall, the weight of truth heavy in his pocket, as the music shifted and the doors at the back of the church opened. It was time. The processional began, bridesmaids floating down the aisle in champagne-colored gowns, each step bringing Jack closer to the moment of truth. The guests smiled, cameras flashed, and the familiar wedding march filled the church with its promises of forever. And then Maya appeared at the entrance, a vision in ivory lace, her father beside her. A collective gasp rose from the assembled guests. She was stunning, radiant, the picture of a blushing bride eager to begin her life with the man she loved. Jack watched her approach, struck by the absolute conviction in her performance. There was no hesitation in her step, no guilt shadowing her eyes, just the practiced smile of a woman who believed she had won. As Maya took her place beside him at the altar, her hands slipped into his with practiced intimacy, "Hi," she whispered, her voice trembling with what anyone else would interpret as bridal emotion. Jack squeezed her hand gently, his voice soft enough that only she could hear. "I know everything, Maya." Her fingers tensed in his, her smile freezing for a microsecond before she recovered. "What do you mean, babe?" she whispered back, eyes fixed forward as the pastor began his welcome. "I mean I know about you and James, or should I say Alexander?" Jack kept his voice calm, his expression serene as the pastor spoke of sacred unions and eternal bonds. "I know about Tyler. I know about the plan for my money." Maya's face remained impressively composed, though her hand had gone cold in his. "Jack, I don't know what you're talking about. You're scaring me." "Dearly beloved," the pastor intoned, "we are gathered here today in the sight of God and these witnesses to join this man and this woman in holy matrimony." Jack felt a strange calm settle over him, the calm that comes not from surrender, but from absolute clarity. In the front row, he caught Mrs. Adesina's eye. Something in her expression told him she sensed the undercurrents, the storm building beneath the ceremonial surface. She gave him the smallest nod, a gesture of support, of faith in whatever choice he made. That subtle acknowledgment shifted something in Jack's heart. He had been wrestling with how to proceed, with public exposure or private retreat. But suddenly he understood there was a third path, one that honored both truth and dignity. "The pastor is going to ask if anyone objects to this union," Jack whispered to Maya, his eyes forward, his smile intact for the benefit of watching guests. "No one will. Then he'll ask us to recite our vows. When that moment comes, I will speak my truth, not out of vengeance, but because I refuse to build a life on lies." Maya's breathing quickened, panic flashing across her features. "Jack, please. If you walk out now," he continued calmly, "leave before I speak. I won't pursue charges. I won't expose Tyler. I'll tell everyone I had a change of heart. This is the only mercy I'm offering." "You're making a terrible mistake," she hissed, desperation creeping into her voice. "I love you. Whatever you think you know. If there be anyone present who knows any reason why this couple should not be joined in matrimony, let them speak now or forever hold their peace," the pastor announced to the silent church. The traditional pause followed, that moment of ritual tension where no one ever actually objects. Jack felt Maya's body coil with tension beside him, her eyes darting to where Alexander sat among the groomsmen, then to Tyler, who had gone pale with understanding. The silence stretched. No objections came. "Very well," the pastor continued, smiling benevolently. "Jack and Maya have chosen to recite vows they've written themselves. Jack, would you please share the promises you bring to this marriage?" This was the moment, the fulcrum upon which his future would turn. Jack reached into his pocket and removed not the loving vows he'd written months ago, but the single sheet of paper he'd prepared the night before. Maya's eyes widened in recognition. She knew what was coming. "Walk out now," Jack whispered, offering her one final chance at a dignified exit. "Or stay and face the truth." For one heartbeat, it seemed she might take his offer. Her body shifted slightly toward the aisle. Then her spine straightened, her chin lifted with defiance, and Jack knew she had made her choice. "So be it." Jack unfolded the paper, looked out at the assembled guests, friends, family, colleagues, and found his voice. "I came here today to make vows of love and fidelity," he began, his voice strong and clear. "I believed I was marrying a woman who shared those values. I was wrong." A murmur rippled through the church. Maya's hand slipped from his, her face draining of color. "I'm not going to stand here and pretend," Jack continued. "I'm not going to swear false oaths or build a marriage on deception. 3 days ago, I discovered evidence that Maya, along with my groomsman James Parker, whose real name is Alexander Collins, and my cousin Tyler have been planning to defraud me of my inheritance and savings after our marriage." The murmur became a wave of shocked exclamations. In the front row, Jack's mother pressed her hand to her mouth, her eyes moving between her son and her nephew with dawning horror. "I have proof," Jack said, holding up the folder Eric had slipped to him moments before the ceremony. "Bank records. Transcripts of conversations. Photographic evidence. I've already provided copies to the appropriate authorities, who are waiting outside this church. Alexander shot to his feet, calculating escape routes. Tyler remained frozen, his face ashen. Maya stood trembling beside Jack, caught in the spotlight of exposure. I could have cancelled this wedding quietly, Jack told the stunned gathering. I could have walked away and nursed my wounds in private. But I realized that would only free these three to target someone else, someone who might not discover the truth until it was too late. Jack turned to face Maya directly for the first time. I did love you, he said, his voice softening with the weight of truth. That wasn't a lie. I would have given you everything freely, my heart, my home, my future. You didn't need to steal it. Maya's composure finally cracked. Jack, please, she whispered, tears spilling down her cheeks. I can explain. It started that way, but I fell in love with you for real. I was going to call it off with them. Save it for the police, Eric said, stepping forward to stand beside his friend. The back doors of the church opened. 2 plainclothes officers entered, followed by a uniformed policeman. Alexander bolted for a side exit, but was quickly intercepted by a 4th officer waiting outside. Chaos erupted as guests stood, questions flying, cameras flashing. Through it all, Jack maintained his calm center, watching as the architects of his pain faced the consequences of their actions. By the way, while you're watching this moment of justice, if you're feeling moved by this story, go ahead and subscribe. Your support is what allows me to keep sharing these powerful real-life journeys. Don't be shy, join our family with just 1 click. As the police led Maya, Alexander, and Tyler away, Jack felt no triumph, only relief, tinged with sadness for what might have been. Mrs. Adesina appeared at his side, her hand warm on his arm. You did the right thing, she said simply. Not the easy thing, the right thing. Jack nodded, his voice thick with emotion. I almost couldn't go through with it. But you did, she replied, and that's what matters. Courage isn't the absence of fear, it's action in the face of it. Eric approached, clapping a hand on Jack's shoulder. You okay? For the first time in days, Jack considered the question honestly. Was he okay? His wedding had imploded. His fiancée was headed to a police station. His family was in shambles, his trust shattered. And yet, I will be, Jack answered, surprising himself with a certainty in his voice. For the first time since Christmas Eve, I actually believe that. As the church emptied, guest by guest, friend by friend, Jack remained at the altar where his life was supposed to have changed today. It had, just not in the way anyone had expected. What now? Eric asked as they stood in the empty church, surrounded by abandoned flowers and programs. Jack loosened his tie, feeling the first real smile in days touch his lips. Now I start over. Not as a victim. Not as a fool. But as someone who refused to let other people's betrayal define him. The winter sun streamed through the stained glass windows, painting the empty pews with kaleidoscope colors. Outside, a new year waited, full of possibility, unburdened by lies. Jack walked down the aisle, not as a married man, but as someone who had faced his darkest hour and emerged stronger. The wedding had ended before it began, but Jack's real journey was just beginning. And for the first time since that snowy Christmas Eve, he looked toward the future with hope. The church emptied in waves of shocked whispers and hurried footsteps. Outside, winter sunlight gleamed off police vehicles as Maya, Alexander, and Tyler were escorted away in separate cars. Guests gathered in confused clusters on the steps, piecing together what they had just witnessed. The wedding planner stood frozen beside the flower-laden archway, her clipboard hanging limply at her side. Jack moved through this aftermath like a man walking through a dream, present but somehow separate from the chaos swirling around him. Relatives approached with questions in their eyes, friends offered awkward condolences, and colleagues shifted uncomfortably between curiosity and sympathy. His mother found him in the church garden, her face lined with concern and confusion. "Why didn't you tell me?" she asked, her voice breaking. "I could have helped you." Jack took her trembling hands in his. I needed to handle this myself, Mom. And I couldn't risk Tyler finding out that I knew. She shook her head, tears spilling down her cheeks. My own nephew, planning this against you. I can't believe it. He made his choices, Jack said gently. Now we all have to live with them. As they embraced, Jack caught sight of Toulouse standing alone by the church entrance, looking lost in her bridesmaid gown. He excused himself from his mother and approached Maya's sister. I'm sorry, Toulouse said when he reached her. For what it's worth, I tried to talk her out of the wedding last night. I told her to confess everything to you. What did she say? Jack asked, curious despite himself. Toulouse's smile was sad. She said you loved her too much to ever believe anything bad about her. That even if she confessed, you'd forgive her because that's who you are. The words hit Jack with unexpected force, the realization that Maya's greatest weapon against him had been his own capacity for forgiveness, his own belief in redemption. She was wrong, Jack said quietly. I would have forgiven a mistake, a moment of weakness, but not a calculated plan to destroy me. Toulouse nodded. For what it's worth, I think part of her really did love you. Just not enough to choose you over herself. The reception venue called Jack's phone repeatedly, the staff confused about whether to proceed with the celebration. The wedding coordinator hovered nearby, her professional composure cracking under the unprecedented situation. Vendors arrived with flowers, food, music, all the elements of a celebration that would never happen. Eric took charge, redirecting deliveries, canceling what could be canceled, ensuring that the reception hall would donate the prepared food to a local shelter rather than let it go to waste. You don't have to do this, Jack told his friend, watching him field yet another call. Eric shrugged. Yes, I do. Because you would do it for me. As the afternoon wore on, the police detective handling the case asked Jack to come to the station to give his formal statement. The evidence was compelling, she told him, especially with the private investigator's documentation and the recorded conversations. It would be an open and shut case. They'll likely face charges of conspiracy to commit fraud, among other things, the detective explained as they stood beside her unmarked car. Maya and Alexander have histories of similar schemes, though never quite this elaborate. And Tyler? Jack asked, the name still painful to speak. The detective's expression softened slightly. Your cousin is cooperating. Claims he was pulled into their scheme initially but wanted out. Says he was being blackmailed to continue. Do you believe him? Jack asked. Does it matter what I believe? She countered. The question is whether you do. Jack considered this as he followed the detective to the station, the limousine that should have carried him and Maya to their reception now taking him to give testimony against her. The irony wasn't lost on him. At the station, Jack was led to an interview room where his statement was recorded methodically, his emotions stripped away and reduced to facts, dates, evidence. In the sterile environment of law enforcement, the personal betrayal that had shattered his world became case number 23 to 7842, conspiracy to commit fraud. Through a window in the hallway, Jack caught a glimpse of Maya sitting in another interview room, her wedding dress incongruous against the institutional gray walls. Her makeup was smeared from tears, her carefully styled hair coming undone. For a brief moment, their eyes met through the glass, hers pleading, his resolute. Before we continue, can I ask a tiny favor? Hit that subscribe button. It means more than you know. Every subscription helps bring more of these raw, real stories to light. Later that evening, as shadows lengthened across the city, Jack found himself at Mrs. Adezna's home, the one place he knew he would find neither judgment nor hollow reassurances. She greeted him at the door, still wearing her wedding guest outfit, as if she'd been expecting him. Come in, she said simply. The kettle's just boiled. They sat in her comfortable living room, steam rising from mugs of strong tea, the day's events hanging heavy between them. Outside, the first celebrations of New Year's Eve had begun, distant music and occasional fireworks punctuating the quiet. I keep thinking about what happens next, Jack admitted after a long silence. Everyone keeps asking if I'm okay, and I keep saying I will be. But the truth is, I don't know who I am anymore. Mrs. Adesina considered this. You are exactly who you've always been, Jack. The difference is that now you see clearly. What if I don't like what I see? He asked. I didn't recognize the woman I was going to marry. I didn't see through my own cousin's deception. What does that say about my judgment? It says you're human, she replied without hesitation. It says you believe in people's potential rather than their darkest possibilities. That's not weakness, Jack. That's rare and precious. Jack set his mug down, running his hands over his face. I exposed them in front of everyone. Part of me wonders if I should have handled it differently. Mrs. Adesina's expression grew stern. Would private humiliation have been kinder? Would secret justice have been more noble? No. You didn't create a spectacle for revenge. You spoke truth to prevent future harm. Never apologize for that. As the clock approached midnight, Jack received a call from the detective. Maya wanted to speak with him. Just 5 minutes, no recording, no lawyers. Her only request before being transferred to county lockup to await arraignment. You don't have to do this, the detective said. It's completely your choice. Jack thought of the woman he'd loved, or thought he had loved, sitting in a holding cell in her wedding dress. I'll come, he said finally. But I won't be alone. Eric drove him back to the station, the streets increasingly filled with New Year's revelers. You sure about this? He asked as they pulled into the parking lot. Jack nodded. I need to hear whatever she has to say. For closure. Inside, Maya waited in the same interview room, her appearance even more disheveled than before. When Jack entered, her eyes lit with desperate hope. Thank you for coming, she said, her voice hoarse from crying. I didn't think you would. Jack sat across from her, maintaining physical and emotional distance. You have 5 minutes. Maya leaned forward, her hands clasped on the table between them. Everything went wrong, she began. This wasn't supposed to happen like this. You mean you weren't supposed to get caught, Jack corrected. No, I mean yes, but, she took a shaky breath. It started as a con. Alexander approached me last year, showed me Tyler's gambling debts, told me how they could be erased if I helped them. You were just a target then. Jack remained silent, letting her continue. But then I got to know you, Maya said, her voice softening. The real you. Not just your assets or your inheritance. And I started to fall for you, Jack. For real. Yet you continued with a plan, he noted, his voice neutral. You brought another man into our bed. You conspired with my cousin against me. Those aren't the actions of someone in love. Maya's eyes filled with fresh tears. I was trying to find a way out. Alexander threatened to expose everything if I backed out. I thought if we got married, I could confess everything to you later, when we were already committed to each other. I thought you'd forgive me. You thought I was a fool, Jack said quietly. No, Maya insisted. I thought you were the best man I'd ever known. Too good for me, but I wanted to be worthy of you. Jack studied her face, the face he'd woken up next to countless mornings, the face he'd imagined growing old with. Looking at her now, he realized with startling clarity that he felt nothing. No anger, no hatred, not even disappointment. Just a profound emptiness where love had once resided. I didn't come here for explanations or apologies, he told her. I came to say goodbye, Maya, and to tell you that I forgive you, not for your sake, but for mine. I refuse to carry the weight of this betrayal into my future. Maya's expression crumpled. Jack, please. I hope you find what you're looking for, he continued, rising from his chair. I hope someday you understand what real love looks like. But I won't be the one to show you. As Jack turned to leave, Maya called after him, her voice breaking. I did love you, Jack. In my way. He paused at the door, looking back one last time at the woman who had almost become his wife. Your way wasn't enough, he said simply, and closed the door behind him. Outside, the city erupted in celebration as the clock struck midnight. Fireworks bloomed against the night sky, and cheers echoed from bars and house parties. A new year had begun. Eric was waiting in the lobby, concern etched on his face. "You okay?" For the first time since Christmas Eve, Jack answered honestly, "No." "But I will be." They stepped outside into the fresh beginning of January 1st. The air was cold and clean, filled with possibility. Jack looked up at the fireworks painting the darkness with ephemeral light and felt something shift inside him, not healing exactly, not yet, but the first step toward it. "Happy New Year," Eric said, clapping him on the shoulder. Jack nodded, watching the celebration unfold around them. "It will be," he said. "I'll make sure of it." The wedding that was meant to begin his future had ended before it started. But standing in the first moments of a new year, Jack understood that sometimes endings were simply disguised beginnings, and his real story was just starting to unfold. 6 months after the wedding that never was, spring had transformed the city. Cherry blossoms lined the streets, their delicate petals creating pink snowfalls with each breeze. Life continued its relentless forward motion, carrying Jack along with it. The legal proceedings had concluded swiftly. With overwhelming evidence and Tyler's testimony against his co-conspirators, both Maya and Alexander had accepted plea deals rather than face trial. The story had made local news briefly, wedding day fraud scheme foiled, before fading into obscurity, replaced by fresher scandals and newer heartbreaks. Jack sat at an outdoor cafe, watching people pass by, their faces turned toward the sun after the long winter. 6 months ago, he couldn't have imagined sitting peacefully like this, couldn't have pictured a day when the pain would dull enough to allow simple pleasures. "Sorry I'm late," Mrs. Adesina said, appearing beside his table with a warm smile. "Faculty meetings always run long in spring." Jack stood to pull out her chair. "I ordered your favorite," he said, gesturing to the lavender tea waiting for her. Their monthly lunches had become a touchstone in Jack's healing process, a space where he could speak honestly about his journey without fear of judgment or hollow reassurance. Today marked half a year since the day that had redefined his life. "How are you feeling about the anniversary?" Mrs. Adesina asked, her perceptiveness as sharp as ever. Jack considered the question. "It's strange," he admitted. "It feels both like yesterday and like another lifetime." He stirred his coffee thoughtfully. "I realized this morning that I went a whole day without thinking about her yesterday. That's a first." Mrs. Adesina nodded. "Healing isn't linear, but that's significant progress." "I visited Tyler last week," Jack said, the words still difficult to speak. His cousin had received a lighter sentence, 18 months with possibility of parole, in exchange for his cooperation. "He seems genuinely remorseful. Says he's getting counseling for his gambling addiction." "And how did that make you feel?" Mrs. Adesina asked, her teacher's instinct for probing questions intact. Jack gazed out at the spring afternoon before answering. "Sad. Angry still, in some ways. But also, peaceful. I don't know if I'll ever fully trust him again, but I don't want to carry the hatred anymore." "Forgiveness doesn't mean reconciliation," she reminded him gently. "You can release the burden of anger without allowing someone back into your life." Jack smiled. "That's the lesson I've been learning these past months. Boundaries aren't punishment, they're protection." After lunch, Jack walked through the park where he had once proposed to Maya. The memory no longer pierced him as it once had. Instead, it felt distant, like watching a movie about someone else's life. His phone buzzed with a text from Eric. "Don't forget dinner tonight. Sophia's making her famous lasagna, and the twins have been asking when Uncle Jack is coming over." Jack smiled, texting back his confirmation. Eric's family had enfolded him during his darkest days, providing the sense of belonging he had lost when Maya and Tyler's betrayal shattered his notion of family. As he walked, Jack reflected on the strange gifts that had emerged from his pain. He had learned to trust his instincts more deeply. He had discovered who his true friends were. He had built stronger boundaries and higher standards. Most importantly, he had learned that survival wasn't just possible, it was inevitable. The severance package from his old company had given Jack the freedom to reassess his professional path. Unable to continue working where Alexander and Tyler's presence lingered in every conference room and corridor, he had taken a risk on the business idea he'd been nurturing for years, a consulting firm specializing in helping small, community-focused businesses thrive. 6 months in, the venture was showing promising signs of success. Just that morning, he had signed a contract with his 10th client, a family-owned bookstore fighting to survive in the digital age. His phone rang, a number he didn't recognize. For a moment, old anxiety flared, but Jack answered anyway. "Is this Jack Wick?" a woman's voice asked. "Yes, it is. This is Detective Ramirez. We met during the Stone case. I hope you don't mind me calling." Jack tensed slightly. "Is everything all right?" "Everything's fine," she assured him. "I'm actually calling for professional reasons. The department is looking for a consultant to help with our community outreach program, and your name came up. I remembered how composed you were during a crisis and thought you might be interested." Jack found himself smiling at the unexpected opportunity. "I'd be happy to discuss it." After arranging a meeting with the detective, Jack continued his walk, noticing how the spring sunshine felt warmer somehow, the colors around him more vivid. He stopped at a small bench overlooking the pond, the same bench where he had sat stunned and shattered the day after discovering Maya's betrayal. 6 months ago, he had come here believing his life was over, that no pain could be greater than what he was experiencing. Now he understood that pain wasn't the end of the story, it was simply a chapter. His phone buzzed with another message, this time from Tolu. "Hey stranger. Just checking in. How are you doing?" After the wedding disaster, Maya's sister had reached out to apologize again, then kept a respectful distance, understanding that Jack might associate her with painful memories. But they had gradually developed a friendship independent of Maya, one built on mutual respect and shared experience. "Better every day," Jack replied honestly. "Having dinner with friends tonight." "You?" Her response came quickly, busy with grad school applications. "Thinking of getting coffee this weekend if you're free?" "Just as friends, of course." Jack considered this. 6 months ago, the idea of maintaining any connection to Maya's family would have seemed impossible. Now it felt like a testament to his healing, proof that he could separate people from the pain of his past. "I'd like that," he typed back. "Saturday afternoon works for me." As the day drew to a close, Jack returned to his new apartment, a bright, open space with large windows and none of the memories that had haunted his previous home. He had furnished it sparingly but thoughtfully, each piece chosen to represent his new beginning rather than echo his past. On the wall hung a framed quote Mrs. Adesina had given him 3 months after the wedding. "The oak fought the wind and was broken, the willow bent when it must and survived." Beneath it stood a small table holding photographs, Eric and his family, Mrs. Adesina at her retirement party, Jack's mother laughing at a recent birthday celebration, and a new addition, Jack at the opening of his consulting firm, ribbon cutting in hand, face alight with purpose. No pictures of Maya remained. No mementos of the relationship that had nearly destroyed him. Not because he couldn't bear to see them, but because he no longer needed them, either as reminders of pain or shields against forgetting. I'd love to know if you're enjoying this story. If you haven't subscribed yet, why not take a second to hit that button? Your support means everything, and I promise to keep bringing you content that touches the heart and soul. That evening, surrounded by Eric's family, the twins climbing over him demanding stories, Sophia pressing seconds on him with motherly insistence, Jack felt the warm current of belonging that had once seemed lost to him forever. "Uncle Jack, did you bring us anything?" 7-year-old Emma asked, her expectant face impossible to resist. Jack produced 2 small packages from his jacket. "I might have something." As the children tore into their gifts, art supplies he knew they loved, Eric caught his eye across the table. "You look good," his friend observed quietly. "At peace." "I am," Jack realized, surprised by the simple truth of it. "Not every day, but more often than not now." Later, after the twins had been put to bed with Jack's promised stories, the adults sat on the patio with glasses of wine, watching stars emerge in the spring sky. "Have you heard anything from her?" Sophia asked carefully, her question gentle but direct. Jack shook his head. The no-contact order is still in effect until her probation ends. But honestly, even if it wasn't, I have nothing left to say. And Tyler? Eric asked. That's more complicated, Jack admitted. He's family, despite everything. I'm not ready to let him back into my life, but I'm also not willing to say never. Time will tell. The conversation drifted to lighter topics, work projects, summer plans, neighborhood gossip. Jack participated fully, no longer the shell-shocked man who had sat at the same table 6 months ago, unable to eat or speak or imagine a future beyond his pain. Around midnight, Jack walked home through quiet streets, the spring air cool and sweet with flowering trees. He thought about the journey of the past 6 months, from devastation to survival, from survival to healing, from healing to growth. The wedding that never happened had nearly broken him. The betrayal by those he trusted most had almost destroyed his capacity for faith in others. But standing under the vast spring sky, Jack understood that some endings were necessary beginnings, painful but ultimately freeing. In the darkest days after the wedding, Jack had asked himself repeatedly what he had done to deserve such betrayal. Now he understood that was the wrong question. The right question was what he would do with the life that remained, how he would rebuild, what lessons he would carry forward, who he would choose to become. Back in his apartment, Jack opened his balcony doors to let in the night air. The city spread before him, a tapestry of lights and possibilities. Somewhere out there, Maya was serving her sentence. Somewhere, Tyler was reflecting on his choices. Somewhere, Alexander was facing the consequences of a lifetime of deception. Jack wished them neither harm nor happiness. They were characters in a story he had finished reading, influential but no longer central to his narrative. As midnight passed and a new day began, Jack thought about the letter he'd received from Maya last month, forwarded through her lawyer, unopened and returned. Whatever explanations or apologies it contained no longer mattered. He had moved beyond the need for either. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new opportunities, new connections. Jack was ready for all of it, the good and the difficult, the joyful and the painful. Because if the past 6 months had taught him anything, it was that he was stronger than any wound, more resilient than any betrayal, and worthy of a love that didn't require sacrifice or compromise. Standing on his balcony under the star-filled sky, Jack spoke aloud the truth he had finally embraced. You never lose when you walk away from what was never meant for you. The words floated upward, carrying with them the last remnants of regret and uncertainty. In their place settled a quiet confidence, not in what the future held, but in his ability to meet it with an open heart and clear eyes. Jack Wick had lost a wedding, a fiancée, and a false future. But he had gained himself, and that, he now understood, was the greatest victory of all. The night embraced Jack as he turned back toward his apartment, ready for whatever tomorrow would bring. And to you, my beautiful viewers who've stayed with us through this entire journey, thank you from the bottom of my heart. If this story touched you, if you found meaning in Jack's path from betrayal to strength, please take a second to hit that subscribe button. Each subscription reminds me why I share these stories of resilience and healing. Remember, just like Jack discovered, sometimes walking away is the bravest thing you can do. Drop a comment below sharing your thoughts or a time when you had to choose yourself. And if you haven't subscribed yet, don't you want more stories that speak to the soul? Subscribe now, and let's keep growing this family together. Until next time, remember your worth is never determined by those who couldn't see it.